the Palace of Speed. The chaos early on in this race.
This is the Spec-5 World Tour on slow motion broadcasting. We are here for race 7 of season 10 at Silverstone Circuit. My name is Randall McGrew. I will be joined shortly by Alex Andersen, currently joined now by our production staff, Adam Thompson. Adam, looks like we have a good race lined up tonight. What are your thoughts for what we're going to see here tonight at Silverstone?
Yeah, Randall, we absolutely do, man. I mean, I've obviously, mostly I'm down here in the production booth, so I'm glad I get to talk here for a little bit about this league, because it really is one of the good ones, one of the ones we've had around for a while, always put on great racing. I'm looking forward tonight to see how Joshua Soto can do. Obviously has won the last 2 races here for Spec-5 in the pro class, but that open class, man, Sean is just running away with it in the open class, so we'll see what he can do. Some of the newcomers that I thought may have had a little bit of a challenge to him, Ashley Molyneux isn't here tonight, so that might change things up a little bit, but you know, this track, Randall, is different than what we've been seeing here mostly for Spec-5 for the last 7 races or so. So I don't know how much slipstream is going to take into effect, especially around this older version of Silverstone.
That's right. There's not as much opportunity to slipstream here as really a driver's track. Not a lot of elevation to help you get around some of these corners. Very flat. Of course, this track, well known for being a RAF air base back in the 40s, where they trained pilots for night bombing. Hopefully we don't see too much bombing here tonight. And it has become an iconic track known across the world. It's got some really, really well-known corner combinations. The very fast right-handed turn 1 in this layout of Cops, and then the very fast S's, Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel that lead onto that hangar straight. That's probably going to be your best slipstreaming opportunity, is going down that hangar straight. The approach from Club to Abbey is a little bit longer than the new layout, so maybe another chance there, but very much a twisty track and going to challenge these drivers a lot.
It really is, and we're about to see Greg Brockway actually come through some of I think maybe one of the hardest sections on this old layout. Just gets super tight very quickly, and you can see Greg just sends it off the track just a little bit right there. But Randall, as he comes here through the final corner, I think I'll just hand it back over to you again and let you take us around on a lap.
Certainly. Would love to take a tour around Silverstone. We're coming out of the last corner. Got to keep it very snug on exit. Open the wheel up. Use as much of the track as possible, trying to build up that speed. Going to get very close to these pylons on the inside without clipping them. Let the car drift back out to the left. We're going to stay to the left and keep our eyes to the right and try to look for that apex curbing. Brake just a little bit and pitch the car in, fighting the oversteer, dropping down to third. He might stay in fourth when he gets a little bit warmer tires. Try not to run too wide on exit. You get out of that AstroTurf, you can find yourself spinning. Set up on the right side of the track. Really fling it in here through Maggots and Beckett's. I'm going to take a very brief break here. Down to third gear. Try to take a late apex and set up this last corner here. Get in through Chapel and down onto the hanger straight. You really got to get to the throttle as early as possible coming out of Maggots and Beckett's to get a good run down the hanger straight. This is going to be one of your best passing opportunities as you approach, so it could be a last of the late breakers battle here. You see he gets all the way to the left-hand side of the track, really opens up the entry of the corner, tries to turn the wheel as little as possible, ride the curb, let it help you turn, and use as much track on the exit as possible. Even you can get all the way out to that exit curb. As we approach the inner chicane here, you got to brake really early, and he runs just a little wide, comes in a little hot. It's going to invalidate his lap, but he doesn't go too far off track. That would be a good save in the race, and keep it snug here through Club. And another longer run down to Abbey. Now, on the newer layout, you would be turning right here towards the end of the straight, right about now for the new layout, but we keep going straight. This is a higher speed chicane. You can use a lot of the curbing here, especially that bit right at the apex. Bringing it out over the left, go through the bridge turn. This is flat out in these cars. Once the tires are up to temperature, bring the car to the right. Just a dab of brake to get the car to rotate. Bring it back to the right side of the track again for another left-hander. Very snug. He's going down all the way to first gear. Once your tires are warm, you might be able to leave it in second gear. And then again, through the final corner, keeping it snug throughout here. This is called Luffield, which leads into Woodcut, which is that last little bend before the start-finish line.
So, Randall, I know that we kind of talked about this a little bit before we went on air here, but you know, you said that you've now tested these cars with this new tire model at Road Atlanta and now here at Legacy Silverstone. And let me tell you, folks, if you guys don't know Randall McGrew, and most of you probably don't, this guy's no slouch when it comes to race cars and racing. You've got just a knack for it. And you know, we saw Greg. I watched him throw that thing into turn one. It looked like he was going to lose it, but the car just went into a four-wheel slide through one. Is that, is that something that we can expect the whole race?
With the setup these guys are running, and on this tire model update, it's mostly dangerous if, forgive me, had a little frog in my throat. It's mostly dangerous if you're riding the brake too hard whenever you're turning the wheel. So it's a little bit forgiving if you come in a little too hot and you're not on the brake. You'll get that four-wheel drift like we saw Greg get. But if you're carrying a little too much brake, boy, that back end will just step right around on you as all the weight goes to the front. There's nothing back there on the back, and it just turns right around.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how these guys handle these first couple laps, with especially on cold tires. As you can see what I'm talking about with Ronnie Coates, just the car does not like to stick. It's like you mentioned last week, the front end almost has too much grip, and the rear, there's nothing back there to hold the back end of the car down. But speaking of Ronnie Coates, right now he's up in first place, which is a bit of surprise. I expected him. I know he's quick, but look at there, Joshua Soto about almost 0.3 of a second back. So this is a pretty big surprise here brewing in the pro class. But down here, I mean, look at Sean Hayes, business as usual for him. Leader in the open class, only lap one, by the way, but leader in the open class by quite a bit.
I highly suspect that this is his last season with the blue badge on his number. he has shown a lot of speed and can definitely fight with some of the faster guys in the pro class. So expect to see him in red next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I would expect to see that as well. With the way that Spec-5 does their, they divide their drivers out. The winner of the open class championship at the end of every season ends up moving up into the pro class. So unless Sean really has some bad races or really starts to find a way to slow his car down quite a bit, he's got no choice. He's going to be up there with all these guys in the in the pro class. But right now, looking up here, Otis Adams Jr., fellow Indiana guy, as Randall and I can attest to. He's got some pace tonight.
He must be taking the loop around Indy pretty often. He seems to handle himself in traffic pretty well, and he's definitely got the speed like most of those guys drive on that loop around Indy. Not surprised to see him up near the front. We're going to see these times start to drop off a little bit more as they get some heat in the tires. The first lap is really treacherous. And now I know these guys have a lot more seat time in this car and with the setup than I do. So it's no surprise they're able to handle it a lot better than me. And like Josh Soto said last week, he runs a pretty loose setup normally anyway, so this kind of suits him. So if you're used to that really loose setup, you can probably abuse the physics a little bit in your favor.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And I mean, we've watched drivers. You can tell too. I mean, I don't want to try to bring in an F1 reference here, but drivers like Max Verstappen love a loose car and almost on the edge of even being drivable. But if you can find a way to get that car wheeled around and you can start working that drift and that the rear end the way you want to, I do believe that loose cars are probably a little bit faster. You can do a little bit more with them than you can with cars that have a lot of understeer. But it just does not look comfortable for those guys out there right now. But with that being said here, Adams still up there in first place overall. We got Ronnie Coates back here in second, trying to make a push. He just crosses the line, and he is not going to improve. He actually 2:10.788 is a little bit slower than his first lap even. I didn't expect that. I would expected him to get a little bit quicker.
He may have had a moment somewhere, possibly through the S's. It's really easy to lose it if you are a little late on the brake somewhere in the S's. It can cause you to have a snap of oversteer, and that'll easily cost you a couple tenths. Or it could have been anywhere else. There's a lot of places where you can get the lap wrong around here. So it's a very complicated lap, very hard to put together one lap that is really good and solid. So far, Adams leading the way on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just watched Ray Lombardi cross the line as well. And that was his second lap and was green in mostly every sector that he ran. Him and Sean Hayes, he's up there right now, second place in the open class. Got a little bit more work to do if he plans on catching Sean. He's still quite a bit of ways back from Sean, but able to at least get his car up there into second place with Tom Athon in the pit lane there in third in the open class right now. Josh Olson back there in 17th overall, fourth in the open class. He has just crossed the line, and this is going to be his third lap. They've got 4 laps, guys, to get their qualifying done. Looks like Otis Adams is done. We've got about 5 minutes left as well, so Randall, if you're out qualifying, if you were in this league, would you hold it a little later? I mean, the time of day maybe have something to do with it. Does rubber on the track affect these cars in qualifying? Even though it's not a open qualifying, it's closed. As you can see, there's only one car on the track. Does that still have an effect?
Rubber on the track does have a bit of an effect on this car. It seems to peak right around what iRacing determines as 60% track usage and falls off a little bit after that. So they should be in a good spot. Their faster laps should be towards the end of the session just because they're burning off fuel and there's a little bit more rubber down. They have heat in the tires. If I was to run the qualifying here, I'd probably try to have a clean first lap. Maybe push it a little bit on the second lap. Make sure my third lap is definitely clean and a good banker. And then my fourth lap is just going to be a complete bonsai. I'm trying to find every tenth that I can.
Absolutely. Speaking of bonsai, this is Soto's first lap, and you saw him get just a little bit wide there on the exit of left field, doing what he can to push. Still not enough. Third place. We did mention this when we started about how much draft was going to come into play. maybe for the first time in Spec 5 this season, I think you might be okay in first place, especially with that short run down to turn 1. What do you think?
Well, with this car, almost every track is a draft track, so that kind of works against you as the leader. But I think you're right. At a track like this, being in first place isn't really, you're not really as much of a sitting duck as you are at places like we saw last week, Road Atlanta. That straightaway is absolutely massive in these cars. So you have a lot of time, even if you get a bad exit, to still get that slipstream, still get a good run up. If you get a bad exit through Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel, you're not going to have enough time to catch back up and still make a move. So if you're in the lead on that last lap, coming through the S's is going to be absolutely crucial that you get it right. You may even slow it down a little bit just to make sure, sacrifice a little bit of entry speed, make sure you nail that exit. It's going to be absolutely paramount.
Yeah, it will be for sure. And a driver that we talked about quite a bit last week, Camden Hibbett, starting 11th down there. Doesn't seem to have the pace, at least in his qualifying laps that we saw from him last week. But like I said, still business as usual for Sean Hayes there in the open class. I think he's going to be starting to get pretty close to, wrapping this championship up. We're on race number 7 right now, and I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's out of 10. So, yeah, he's getting pretty close to being able to wrap this Open Championship up. But that battle at the top, man, for that pro class is still anybody's race with, Joshua Soto and Rui Coimbra only separated by about 6 points here. We'll go ahead and bring the points up so we can talk about it, actually, so I don't give you guys bad information. Yeah, here we go. Pro points, Rui Coimbra there with 263 points in first place. Joshua Soto, 7 points behind him in second. And the gap between him and Coates is not that close or not that far apart either, 4 points. Mitchell Peak there in fourth with Lee Martin rounding out the top 5. And then here in the Open, this is when it gets pretty interesting, Randall. You've got Sean Hayes just absolutely blitzing the field in the Open class, but look at how close it gets back behind him.
Yeah, that fight for the second and third step of the podium is going to be definitely one for the ages. I expect Andrew Kosick is going to step up his game this week. Hopefully he can put together a good race and really bring the threat back to Ray and Josh.
Yeah, well, we'll see what he can do here. This is going to be a track that I think it's not going to be as beneficial. Having a good start, having a good, good starting position is definitely going to be more important than it has in the tracks past. But going back and taking a look here, how much time we got left? We got about 10 seconds left. 20. I can't do math, my bad, guys. And we are, looks like Eugenio Polici here about to cross the line, but that's going to be just 4 or 5 drivers out on track right now. So nobody's really throwing any more laps down. They've all completed their 4 laps, and I don't even know if Eugenio's going to be able to get this one in time. Doesn't look like he's going to. Barely missed it, but here come the starting grid for you guys, and I will let you take them through it, Randall.
Otis Adams brings the pole home for the state of Indiana with a 2:10.551. Very close behind him by about a tenth is Ronnie Coates. P3, Josh Soto. P4 is Rui Coimbra. Tom Rathje is in 5th. Mitchell Peak in 6th. I expect Mitchell Peak to try to make up for lost ground last week. He really needs a good race this week. Sean Ruiz in 7th. Sean Hayes in 8th and on your open class pole. Brian Sabelski in 9th. Michael Coates in 10th. Camden Hibbett in 11th. Eugenio Polici in 12th. Lee Martin in 13th. Ray Lombardi, P2 in the open class in 14th. David Stabb in 15th. Tom Athan in 16th. Paulo Coimbra 17th. Kenneth Stabb in 18th. Josh Olson in 19th. Bruce Silva in 20th. Andrew Kosick in 21st. Zach Gadberry 22nd. Greg Brockway 23rd. John Casey in 24th. Stephen Hellowell is in 25th, and we have some pros back here at the back. I don't know if they messed up qualifying or what's going on with these guys. Gareth Brocklesby in 26th, Zach Burke in 27th, and Jedediah Babinek is a shocker on the very last position in the field. He's got a lot of ground to make up. So do Zach and Gareth both.
Yeah, that's going to be – sorry, I apologize there, Randall. That's going to be really tough for those drivers to be able to make that up. But we just brought up the points, Randall, and you can see there way back in 21st position is Andrew Kosick. Andrew has got to start making some moves here. We're getting close to the end of the season. If Andrew's looking to get this open class championship, he can not afford to be waiting around back there at the back of the field.
That's right. They're all racing for the same points. So even if it's a pro class driver in front of him, he may need to get his elbows out and get around.
He absolutely will. So we'll have to see what Andrew can do back there in 21st place. Looks like everybody's gridded up waiting for this pace car to get rolling, and it is one full lap around here, so we do have a little bit of time to talk. And I wanted to talk about this, and I totally forgot to ask you during qualifying, overtaking spots. We'll get this track map pulled back up so the viewers can see what we're talking about, but we already mentioned going into... I've got to get my corner names right. Probably into Stowe, like you mentioned. Are there any other positions or are there other spots that you would expect somebody to make a pretty clear overtake? Now, this is Spec 5, so we see overtakes in places you wouldn't expect normally.
You can even pass on the entry to the club chicane coming out of Vale. You could see somebody go for an immediate retake of a position if they get passed with an over-under move and then try to set up something for the club chicane. Abbey is another good place with that longer run. Is going to give you a bit of a help with slipstream and a bit more time to set up a move. Don't really expect to see much in the last sector, but if somebody really gets it wrong in Brooklands, you could see a pass in Luffield.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. A pass in Luffield would be, well, we'll see, but that's going to be pretty tight because it's not one of those corners that you would expect to pass. You're just coming out of a corner, and then it's not really hard braking, I would say, and it's kind of a sweeper, so... And we know that these Miatas, if you guys have been watching along for the season that we've had so far, they don't have all that much power. So it'll be interesting to see here what these guys can do. Really, that inside line I think is going to be king. As when we were riding on board with Greg Brockway, he was really holding that inside through Luffield, and I think that's probably going to be the quickest way around here in these Miatas. But we are now about halfway through the pace lap. First lap predictions, Randall. You think Otis is going to be able to hold on, or you think Ronnie's going to be able to get that charge? Otis starting on the right line, which is going to be where you want to be going into one.
It's going to be tough to call who's going to be coming through out of the turn one in front because it's so easy to get wrong on cold tires. I think Otis definitely has the advantage there. I expect further back in the field, we're going to see some cars go off. We may even see an incident there. It's very easy to overestimate your abilities or the grip in the tires going into that first corner on cold tires.
Yeah, so unlike Monza, which has probably the most notorious turn one of all time, everybody's got to be checking. And if you guys have watched any sim races or real life races there, the guys in the back are almost stopped by the time they try to get around that corner. So I wouldn't expect to see anything like that. But like you said, I think slipstream may even take a little bit of effect before they even get to one when they go green, so we probably could see some 2 or 3 wide attempts. I don't know if they're going to work, but we could probably see 2 or 3 wide into one, which is going to be pretty interesting to see. But they are now getting ready to come around into Luffield, and we are about to get ready to go green here. Randall, any final thoughts before we get it underway?
Try to keep your nose clean, especially some of these guys fighting for points, like Mitchell Peak. You need to keep your nose clean. You need to have a good finish.
Yeah, that is one guy that we actually didn't talk about during qualifying. Back there in 6th position right now. Going to be interesting to see what he can do. Got to keep his nose clean. We saw the incident that he got involved with last week, but that is last week. He's got to get rid of that, put that out of his mind, because we are about to go racing here at Legacy Silverstone for the 7th time this season for Spec-5 World Tour. Looks like Otis gets an okay start, but Ronnie Coates is already up beside him and past him before they even get to one. Ronnie's going to let him have the room there on the inside. Looks like they get by it all. 2 by 2 by 2, 3 by 3. There was a little bit of 3-wide action back there. I don't know who that was back there. See if I can find him. Now there are
Soto being very aggressive.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, Soto, where did he come from? Around the outside. Looks like he's going to take the lead already.
Yeah, Otis Adams and Coates both took very conservative lines and attacking vectors through turn one. Josh Soto had none of it, said thank you for the spot, took it right through the middle.
He absolutely did. And let's take a look back here. We got Sean Hayes way ahead of Paulo Coimbra. Kind of got to see what happened here in the open class, because that is not how far further ahead Sean Hayes started from all of his open class competitors, but we expect to see this. He's up there mixing it up with the pros. He's got Tom Rath right ahead of him, actually thinking about making a move there on Tom. He's going to hold on to it. Everybody's kind of getting in line here. Going to be going now through that club chicane that you were just talking about, Randall. Not going to see any overtakes. Everybody seems to be keeping it way more steady than they were last week at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, they're still trying to work it out towards the back of the pack to get in single file. We've seen some shuffling going on as they come out of club. We should see them straighten out here. Maybe a couple of moves made coming into the chicane here at the end of the straightaway in Abbey and go heading towards Bridge. But at the front of the field, you see it's very straight. They're getting it in order. We'll see if we get any breakaways forming here very early on.
It looks like we did have an overtake into Abbey, and that was Paulo Coimbra on Lee Martin. So Lee Martin's really going to have to start getting some moves going here. Paulo Coimbra trying to get back up there to Sean Hayes, really his only chance. He's got to get it done while everybody's still in a line and before anybody tries to crash and really breaks that draft train like we saw last week.
You see, it took them the better part of 2/3 of the lap to get everybody sorted out and in position and in a single file line. Now you're really going to start seeing people racing. Who's confident on the colder tires? Who's more conservative and trying to save it for the end?
Absolutely. And right now, as you can see, one by one, looks like I don't think Ronnie Coates is going to have enough to get to Joshua Soto. Ronnie has got to do whatever he can to stay on the back of that black and white car of Joshua, because we have seen how quick he is. Ronnie looking like he's going to think about it going through Maggots, but it's just not going to happen. Beckett's, obviously, you're not going to be able to make a pass there, but here comes Otis Adams, still holding on to the back of those guys, starting to break away there. Mitchell Peak and Tom Rath. Mitchell's kind of stuck in the middle of these two.
Mitchell's hanging on for dear life. If he can keep with these guys, and if even better, if they can form a little bit of a breakaway, he has a good chance to maybe save a little bit of fuel and try to make up some spots in the pit stop, if not on track.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have to see what happens. Mitchell's just trying to hold on to the back of this almost five car now breakaway. But Tom Rath really starting to lose sight of those drivers ahead of him. Going to have to try to stay as close as he can, keep that momentum and keep that draft. We talk about it. We have to keep talking about it in these cars, because that is the name of the game here in these Miatas. And as I say that, looks like Tom has closed in just a little bit there on Mitchell Peak. And look at Sean Hayes. I mean, it's just so wild to see a blue blip that far up this leaderboard.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the top 5 by the end of the race, honestly.
Yeah, this is insane. He looks like he's got control of that car very nicely indeed, doing whatever he has to do. You know he's staying patient. You can see him staying patient, just trying to keep hold of these groups of cars ahead of him. But again, Tom Rath is starting to lose the back just a little bit of Mitchell Peak, as Mitchell Peak is starting to gain up onto the back of Rui Coimbra. And speaking of Rui Coimbra, we were talking about the points here. Go ahead and bring those up one more time, because Rui, obviously in first place right now, Joshua Soto in second, 1 point for each position. You guys do the math. We could be tied very quickly going into race number 8.
That's right. And Rui has not led a lap yet. Josh Soto has. Josh Soto is the only person that has led any lap so far. So he gets a bonus point for that and for leading the most laps. So if he can keep it out in front, that's another point that he gets up on top of Rui Coimbra.
Yeah, I think so. And Randall, as much fun as it was me shooting the crap with you and getting to commentate, which I never get to do anymore, I believe Alex Andersen, who was waiting on his pizza, got stuck in traffic, all kinds of stuff. Looks like he's made his way up here to the broadcast booth, so I'll let you take it over, Alex, and I'll go back in my little hole in the production trailer.
Yeah, I probably should have booked my flight to get to Silverstone a little bit earlier than I did, but thankfully I'm here. Hopefully I haven't missed much, Randall. How about, just for my sake, take us in the audience through what's happened so far?
So we had a very exciting start with Ronnie Coates and Otis Adams Jr. on the front row. Otis Adams had the pole by about 1/10, just a bit longer than 1/10. As they came through turn 1, Josh Soto had a great run, split him, ran right through the middle, and was in the lead by the time they got to Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel.
So it seems like it's been pretty interesting so far as Ronnie Coates and Soto go side by side towards Abby, I believe. Breaking into the fast chicane, still side by side. Looks like Soto is going to get that spot for now. He maintains the lead as Otis Adams there trying to pounce on a missed opportunity from Ronnie Coates there as they head through the final couple of corners under the bridge towards left field. Soto onto the grass a little bit there. Maybe an off track from him. Here's Otis Adams. He's got Rui Coimbra. He's got a teammate right on his bumper, then Mitchell Peak. So pretty much the entire field, the entire top 8 still very close together, still very much in this race. Even look at how far they get off track. I don't know if it's just me being late or if that's just the way these guys drive, but very wide through left field there.
Yeah, they're definitely using all the track width on the exit. It's really hard to not do so and keep any sort of speed. That corner is so tight, and it gets tighter on exit, or so it feels like in the car. So you definitely find yourself all the way out on the exit curbing quicker than you realize.
And it looks like everybody, I mean, they've calmed down for the most part right now. Here's Tom Athan back here in 17th, falling a little bit away from Ray Lombardi, who is right on the back bumper of Paulo Coimbra for second place in the open class. Here's Ray Lombardi trying to chase down the 65 car. And the open class currently, I mean, as it seems like is being normal weekly, is currently being dominated by Sean Hayes, who currently is in P7, way ahead of these guys, all the way up in the main pack even.
And believe it or not, he's only up one spot from where he qualified. He had an amazing qualifying session, put it on 8th, and has kept his nose clean so far and is now running with the leaders.
Yeah, and he's doing a really good job at that. Oh, there's a bit of a move there. That looked like Tom Rath trying to get around Mitchell Peak. Ends up losing the spot to Sean Hayes, it looks like. And Sean Ruiz trying to go for that as well as they head down the straight towards Abby once again. This is also drawing Brian Zabelski closer and closer to these guys, so they better watch out or they're going to have more unwelcome cars coming into this main pack. But side by side through Abby goes Sean Ruiz and Tom Rath. Looks like Rath is going to maintain that spot, but a lot of positions lost from just that one small mistake to that chicane.
Yeah, he's going to have to pin his ears back. Try not to let one mistake become more mistakes. There may have been a little bit of contact there. I didn't really have a clear view of it. But now he's got to make sure that he closes that gap back up to Sean Hayes. Sean Hayes also trying to close that gap up to Mitchell Peak to try to keep that lead pack together. But it looks like the second pack may have joined on the back of Sean Ruiz.
And here they come to complete another lap, rounding lap 5 on minute 9 of this race. So we still have a ways to go for these guys. If you look at the times up there, still running solidly in the 2:11 range. But I do know we always go back to this pretty much every race, but I do want to start to take in consideration when these guys are going to have to pit. I'll have to take a look at the notes that you took yourself, Randall, because Lord knows I forgot mine. So if I just take a look at that, Randall, why don't you tell us when we're going to end up pitting?
The pit window should open about lap 7 and should close around lap 14. And we're looking at it should be a 21 lap race.
All right, well, good information there. That means we're already pretty much almost a quarter through this one, as most of the field heading through the back straightaway. Here's Josh Olson here in P23. He's Andrew Kosick, only 5 tenths behind him, now 4. Bit wide there from Kosick, there into the grass almost, as they head down the back straightaway. That was very wide from the number 50.
And I've seen on my timing screen that he may have had an incident prior to this too, so he may be dealing with some damage possibly. This car looks pretty clean, but I think we're about to see a replay of what happened to Andrew Kosick before that. You can see he's second in line of the small pack coming through. Looks like they're coming into Brooklands, possibly. Oh, that's unlucky. Unlucky. And now he's got a lot of ground to make up. This is not what he needed in this race. It looks like Stephen Hellewell continued on with the incident later, having troubles wrangling that MX-5.
Yeah, it looks like he's held onto it for the most part, but that's going to be some hurt feelings across the pit wall for that car. Currently heading through Abbey now as the rest of the field heads through left field and back onto the front straightaway. Soto still leads them over Coates to Otis Adams, back to Rui Coimbra, back to Mitchell Peak. Still a very close field, but it's starting to become a 5-car breakaway as Sean Hayes and Tom Rath, they're starting to fall back a little.
Yeah, if Tom Rath catches up to Sean Hayes may think discretion is the better part of valor. Let him go and let him pull him back up to that lead 5. Right now, he's sitting pretty in 6th place.
Yeah, he's still way in front of any of his open class competitors, so still doing a great job even if he isn't sticking with a main pack. Here's the real open class battle between Tom Athan, Paulo Coimbra, and Ray Lombardi. It looked like Lombardi actually got around Paulo Coimbra, as last time we checked, they were swapped, so it looks like Ray Lombardi made the move, currently sitting P2 in the open class, but way far back from Sean Hayes leading the open class.
And this is something we haven't seen much this season out of these drivers. Normally, the open drivers are dealing with some of the slower pro class drivers. This is a very difficult track to drive, and the track map is playing it out. You see that it's mostly, with the exception of Sean Hayes, all the pros very tight together up front. There's a small group of open class drivers with 1 pro, and then the rest of the open class back there. We kind of have 3 packs, and it's broke out by classes.
Yeah, it looks like Sean Hayes starting to close up that gap, so slowly bringing himself back into contention. Here's Bruce Silva right on the edge of the top 5 in the open class, running a quiet race, nobody really close to him. He's just running nice, calm, and clean and collected back there in the 19 car. Funnily enough, in 19th place.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of open space to work with. He may try to save some fuel here at some of the end of some of the straightaways, but just don't get complacent and get bored by yourself.
Yeah, I know that's definitely happened to me before. Unrelated to this, but I was in a league race, and I ended up actually almost falling asleep at the wheel because I got bored. So hopefully that's not going to happen to Bruce Silva because he is doing a great job back there in the number 19 car. But real big battle going on up here between Joshua Soto and Ronnie Coates. I would assume that Ronnie probably has the pace to make this move. He's just choosing not to at the moment. Randall, I believe if what you said was correct, pit stops or the pit window should open up this lap. Here's the onboard of Ronnie Coates getting that draft run down the front straight. You could hear the lift there as they went into turn number 1. These guys really just not trying to race each other and just trying to hold it steady, probably waiting for the pit window to open, which it is open this lap. So what time, Randall, would you expect these guys to come into the pits?
I think the leaders are probably going to try to stretch it out as long as possible, but they always seem to prove me wrong. So they'll probably come in this lap. You see, Ronnie Coates is definitely staying behind Josh Soto, but he's also filling his mirrors. You see him sticking his nose out, letting Sean know that he's there, hopefully pressuring him into a mistake. And he might just be biding his time. Josh Soto is a very aggressive driver, and that's not to say that he's dirty, but he's definitely a strong racer and is not afraid to defend or attack.
Most certainly. He always pretty much knows exactly what to do when he is behind the wheel of one of these Miatas as these guys race towards the chicane, heading towards Abbey under the banner there, onto the brakes. We'll see if Coates does anything with this. Still decides to ride in line. I know we still haven't even gotten past the pit stops, but Randall, what time do you think would be good to try and make a move for the lead of this race?
I would say the best time to make a move for this race is during the pit stops. As me and Adam were talking about at the beginning of the broadcast, being in first place isn't necessarily as much of a compromising position as it is at some other tracks here at Silverstone. But the best way to make that move is going to be in the pits. And if you come out in front, Josh Soto has maybe a couple cars between him, and whoever comes out in the lead, then that's a lot of work to make up. You can certainly make the pass on track. There's a few places to do so, but it's going to be much easier to do in the pit stops. Oh, we might see that pass that I predicted in left field coming up here.
Yeah, they're getting really close together, really tight. Ronnie Coates going for the better exit there. It looks like down the front straightaway, it looks like Soto is going to maintain it for now. Nobody into the pits just yet. Right on the back bumper of Soto down the front straightaway. Now he goes to the inside under the start-finish bridge. Looks like Soto is going to hand him the position. New leader, the 31 car.
Very cagey move there by Josh Soto to back out and just give him the spot and don't fight, don't lose any time. Very good move, very smart racing.
Yeah, most certainly, as I reckon none of these guys want to damage their cars just yet, as slowly this is turning into pretty much a 3-car breakaway. Here's Paulo Coimbra on a replay. This is through the final couple of corners. Looks like minding his own business. Looks like Ethan got by him as well for that open class position. So fell back. Ooh, yeah, that's where you can see the looseness that this update affected these Miatas. Really just randomly out of that corner, just car snapped loose on him. Never got into the grass. He was able to save it. No damage done. Here's Tom Athon as well. Looks like some of the open class drivers having some trouble right now. Ooh, you can see how sideways Ray Lombardi gets right there. They go side by side, and Athon just too deep into the corner ends up taking Lombardi with him.
And this is what I mentioned during the qualifying lap. If you're on the brake a little too much and you turn that wheel, these cars will just snap right around on you. And we saw synchronized spins, possibly a little bit of contact.
Yeah, and these guys are still just trying to finish this race calmly and cleanly and just trying to get to the pit stop. Speaking of pit stops, the first person to take to the pits looks like was Andrew Kosek, currently heading through all of the twists and turns of the first sector of this racetrack. I'll have to look at the corner names for those. I'm not quite sure what they are. Maggots and Beckett's, thank you, I hear in my ear from our producer. So heading through Maggots and Beckett's, currently heading down the back straight now is Andrew Kosek. Randall, what do you reckon his strategy is to try and get up there to win this race?
I think he pit early, possibly to assess the damage that was done to the car in that incident, if there was any at all, and maybe see if he could get a little bit of repairs done, and just to maybe clear his head. Take a moment to calm down and try to get back into this thing.
Yeah, and if he can do that, it would be great for him in the points situation, especially with how late it's getting into the season. Second car to take to the pit lane is Tom Rath in the number 41. I believe he pitted from inside the top 10. However, Ronnie Coates still leads over Joshua Soto, as this race has become a 4-car breakaway for the most part. Sean Hayes and that pack behind him has fallen back quite a bit. Rui Coimbra down here as well, followed by Sean Ruiz and Camden Hibbett. Michael Coates is in there as well. So these guys, they've fallen back from the leaders, but they still have a race to go on with themselves, especially if you're in Rui Coimbra's position, because if you're in Rui Coimbra's position, you're going for points. And at this moment, you're losing quite a bit of points to Joshua Soto, currently running in second and challenging for the lead pretty much this entire race. Here's Sean Ruiz to the inside back there. He's going to try and make the move through this corner way wide. They almost doored each other, I do believe, off of that corner, still side by side.
We can see a pass back here into the club chicane. Looks like Rui's got the run. He's going to have the inside line and complete the pass back and not give up the position to Sean Ruiz. You definitely saw there, though, eight tires turn better than 4.
Yeah, most certainly there. They went side by side there. I thought they almost doored each other. Here's another move. Sean Ruiz going back at it again towards Abby. And it looks like onto the brakes. He's going to try and stick his nose in there. That's really close. Sean Ruiz had to stick it way onto the curbs. Still doesn't get the position from Rui Coimbra. Here comes Camden Hibbett. Going to try and make the move as well to the inside of Rui Coimbra. And Sean Ruiz all over the back bumper of that 78 car. Very chaotic right now with these guys. Camden Hibbett around the outside trying to make the move.
And all this time, Sean Hayes is looking at his mirror and saying, "See you later, guys," and driving off into the sunset in P5.
Still a very close battle back here for P6. Camden Hibbett is going to end up with it for now. Looks like Sean Ruiz is going to have to settle for 8th. And I would expect, that's a car into the pits. That's the Italian of Eugenio Polici heading into the pit road. I believe he's the 3rd car to head into the pits this race for fuel, as this battle for P6 is still very much heating up. Ryan Zabelski wide into turn 1.
Looks like he got the brake mark a little bit wrong. The guys in front of him broke a little bit earlier than he was expecting, and he had to bail. Now he's got to scramble to get back up there and keep the draft.
Yeah, these guys are going to have to try and just keep it clean and keep it together if they want to try and have a shot to win this race, because battling for just probably a third of a lap alone there lost them a second and a half to Sean Hayes, who is now just sitting up here all by his lonesome, no one to work with, but still way in front of any other open class competitors. And if you're somebody like Rui Coimbra back here in the points that's trying to win this championship, that's gotta be worrisome, as you know that's just one more car separating you and the person you're fighting with for the championship, side by side again.
And you have some guys right behind you that are very eager to get around you as well. Looks like they're not going to wait. They're not going to work with you. So you got to pick your battles. What a sequence of events, though. Camden Hibbett seemed to come out of nowhere to end up with some opportunistic moves to try to take the fight to Rui Coimbra.
Yeah, they really are going for it to try and make these moves. Camden Hibbett going for it again, blocks from Rui Coimbra towards Abby. Not sure how much race control is going to like that one. Camden Hibbett still trying to make that move out of Abby and towards the final couple of corners under the Silverstone Bridge. Tries to get a better entry into the corner. Coimbra blocks it expertly. Now a bit of a dive bomb here towards the final few corners. He's on the inside now as Camden Hibbett onto the brakes once more as they round the second to last corner and head towards left field. Camden Hibbett going to take that spot. Rui Coimbra trying to get the switchback. Bit of contact with Sean Ruiz. Camden Hibbett moves himself up into sixth.
What a move. Honestly, what a move. They came out of it clean. There was a little bit of a check up there in left field. Sean Hayes dips into the pits. What a great time to take a pit stop. Also, Mitchell Peak.
Yeah, so the green flag pit stops are fully underway now as these guys try and just get the perfect amount of fuel into the car to try and better themselves for the end of this race. It's still a 3-car battle for the lead, as I would reckon that these guys are probably going to try and pit together just to try and maximize their speed. But the thing is, pit strategies can get wild here with one driver especially, and that's Joshua Soto. Randall, why don't you just take us on a cakewalk of all the things he's done on pit stops?
Yeah, every time that I've thought he's maybe down and possibly out, he just absolutely surprised me and come out smiling with it. So whenever Josh pits is when I pit. If I'm in this race, if Josh pits, I pit. But it looks like he's gotten passed by Ronnie, or he's been behind Ronnie Coates now, so he's gotten a chance to save some fuel here. Ronnie had a few laps behind him to save some fuel. Otis Adams just hanging on in the catbird seat. If these guys start fighting, possibly take each other out, then he's got an easy path to victory. Otherwise, he's just sitting back there saving fuel and waiting for that pit stop.
Yeah, and it looked like almost side by side through that corner as they head towards Abbey, if I wasn't mistaken here. Onto the brakes once again as we are a little over halfway through this race, and this battle back here still has not let up. Rui Coimbra has gotten back around Camden Hibbett, who is now under fire from Michael Coates as they head through Abbey, so Camden must have lost the spot to Coimbra and Sean Ruiz there as they head through Maggots and Beckett's.
We're seeing the replay here coming through Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. And he runs wide at Chapel Soda's Rui Coimbra, which is a bit of a shock. But this is definitely what happens and what causes him, Camden Hibbett, to fall back to Sean Ruiz as well. That exit out of Chapel is paramount. And you can see how much time he's losing here as they approach the corner. And yeah, he loses up 2 spots because of one bad run out of Beckett's.
And that just shows you how much momentum-based these cars are as they head towards Cops to round lap 12. And Soto into the pits that time. Here's an off-track for Camden Hibbett. There it is. Same off-track, it looks like Adam is saying to us, as they head down the hangar straight. Mows over the DRS board, bit of lawn mowing from Camden Hibbett there. But Soto now into the pits, so unlike to what you said, Randall, Soto pits all by himself.
I'm surprised. Again, these guys astound me every week and foil my my thoughts and plans. If I'm out there with Josh Soto and he pits, seeing his strength, I'm going with him. These guys know better than me, apparently, and I don't. They definitely know this car better than me. So the race is in their hands. That's why they're out on track and I'm in the booth.
Yeah. So these guys are are pretty smart. They know exactly what they're doing up here, I would say. Here's Ronnie Coates still with Otis Adams Jr. as they head through Club. Now down the straight once again towards Abbey. And these guys, I mean, now it's just the only question we have left to wonder about is when are these guys going to pit? Because Soto is now out of the pits. He's now just racing on his own. And actually, it looked like Mitchell Peak, on a bit of a better strategy than him, got out in front of him through the pit cycle. But those guys still with each other. Now the question is, when do these two come into the pit? Because I would assume they would have to come together.
They definitely will want to come together. If I'm Otis Adams, I'm definitely not pulling off of Ronnie Coates' bumper. I think they're probably going to try to run it as late as possible. They've only got a couple more laps. Try to keep it clean, keep this tandem together, and try to pull away as much as they can over the gap to Josh Soto while he was in the pits. But now he has Mitchell Peak to run with, so here they come. They're coming in together, though.
Yeah, now we have to see what this second pack does as well, led by Rui Coimbra. And we have to see where Mitchell Peak and Joshua Soto end up in relation to these guys. Mitchell Peak on a great pit strategy, currently just about a second ahead of Joshua Soto. So we'll have to see. Looks like the second pack for now stays out. These two firmly in the pits as Mitchell Peak starting to round left field and down the front straightaway. So these guys putting on the left side tires, which would be assumed for this track. Now we just have to see where the other guys are.
They're coming down. They're coming through Woodcut now, coming down the straightaway. We could have a race to turn one here, to the S's, as the pit exit is after turn one. But it looks like Mitchell Peak's going to be third, but they're going to be threatening coming up there. There's going to be a huge speed difference. We could see a pass. Maybe Mitchell Peak will end up in second.
I don't know. Ronnie Coates ended up way out there ahead of these guys. Mitchell Peak is in drafting range of Otis Adams Jr., but Ronnie Coates has checked out at the moment with a 1.8 second gap back to Otis Adams Jr., almost 2 seconds now through Maggots and Beckett. So very impressive from him. Now it's up to see what happens with this second pack and when these guys are going to head to the pit lane.
It's no surprise that Rui Coimbra stayed out to at least lead a lap. That's going to be a very important bonus point for him. And we're looking at Camden Hibbett now. These guys are all still need to pit. All 5 of these drivers still need to pit. They seem to have calmed down now. These are some of our usual suspects here this race. They've stretched out a little bit, calmed down. Maybe we'll see some more fireworks after the stop.
We just have to wait and see for these drivers. Otis Adams missed Club a bit there. He missed the Club chicane. Mitchell Peak quick to try and take advantage of it, but all the while these guys are doing this, Ronnie Coates just continuing to pull further and further away. The gap up to 2.8 seconds now back to Ronnie Coates. So these guys are going to have to look out because the more they fight for this position, the further and further away that 31 car gets.
Yeah. He's not the overall leader right now, but he is the effective leader, and he loves seeing that in his mirror. That you see how much bigger that gap got just from that battle. Almost a whole another second opened up. So anytime they fight, Ronnie Coates is happy.
Yeah, most certainly. He is currently the provisional leader of this race as 5 of the remaining cars in the second pack head to the pit lane, that being Camden Hibbett, David Staub, Michael Coates, Lee Martin, and Kenneth Staub. However, Rui Coimbra and Sean Ruiz electing to stay out once more. So these guys, I mean, they're really trying to pull off a really interesting strategy. The pit window is lap 7 to 14. So these guys are going to have to they are going to have to try and save a little bit, I would assume, to get back to the pit lane as they head it down the hangar straight. They're probably going to take left side tires as well. So, and especially with these guys, they're trying to adhere to the new tire model. So, I mean, the thing is, with that, what are the disadvantages of trying to take new tires with this new tire model?
So if you take new tires, you're going to have one half of your car is going to have cold tires, and one half is going to have warm tires. And the cold tires are the ones that you're going to lean on the most because this is mostly right-hand corners, so left-hand tires are going to get most of the work. It's going to feel weird for a couple laps, having a lot of grip on one side and not much on the other. So you just need to take it a little bit easy on the cold tires and bring them up to temperature, and then it's back to business as usual.
Sean Ruiz tried to make the move on Rui Coimbra there out of club and down the farm straight now. And under the bridge, the corner actually known as Bridge, then down to Prairie, Brooklands, and Luffield to complete one more lap. But I would assume that as they head through Luffield, they're probably going to come into the pits this lap. They pretty much have to, according to what our pit window is. So we'll see what they do as they head through Luffield, presumably for the final time on this stint. We'll see if they make the hard right onto pit road. Here's Camden Hibbett back here in P22. We have to see what happens. It looks like Rui Coimbra and Sean Ruiz are into the pits.
No surprise, they weren't going to be able to save much fuel the way they've been fighting all race. So it's no surprise that they're here on lap 14 and not able to get that 15th lap in.
And here's Ronnie Coates, currently the leader, 3 seconds ahead of Mitchell Peak that you see back there. We have to see where Rui Coimbra and Sean Ruiz get out of the pits. I'm not sure if they'll be able to stay in front of this hard-charging number 31 car. Still stationary in their stalls. They won't. Ronnie Coates, now the actual leader of this race with the fastest lap, or not the fastest lap, but one of the fastest of this race compared to the rest of the field with a 1:10.6. While in that main pack, the fastest lap was a 1:10.9 between Mitchell Peak, Joshua Soto, and Otis Adams Jr. So in the final 13 minutes of this race, Ronnie Coates pretty much just checking out.
Yeah, he's just setting it clean laps now. He's trying to set as many qualifying laps as he can. I suspect that he may have to save just a little bit of fuel with how short his pit stop was, but he has plenty of opportunity to do it as that gap just keeps getting wider and wider. As we see Josh Soto making a move on Mitchell Peak. Mitchell Peak losing 2 spots down the hangar straightaway.
Yeah, so, I mean, these guys, I don't want to assume, but I would probably say that they might have given up hope on trying to catch Ronnie Coates with those moves to shove Mitchell Peak pretty much to the back of the pack there. These guys might just be in it for themselves now, especially the man in second place, Joshua Soto, who currently probably wants the spot more than anybody else in the field to try and make up those points on Rui Coimbra, which he needs to do as we are going to be entering the final 3 races of this season.
Of the 3 of these cars, the one that I think that has the most chance to close that gap to Coates would be Soto. So having him in front is not necessarily a bad thing for these other 2 cars.
The only thing is we have to wonder if he's going to end up losing time, or not even losing time overall, but if these guys end up battling for these positions and just start losing even more time, even though there's already an immense gap between Ronnie Coates and Joshua Soto. Fighting certainly won't help them at all.
Well, they still have 6 laps in this race, and it's a pretty long lap in this car as we see Josh Soto running wide there on the exit of Luffield. So they have a little bit of time to try to work together and close the gap. But you're exactly right. At some point, they are going to abandon all hope of ever catching the leader and start fighting for themselves.
Yeah, and you can see just the pace that 31 car has off the last lap times. The best Soto and Adams could manage was a 2:11.2. Ronnie Coates, however, leading this race, just ran a 1:10.9. So obviously the fastest on track right now. He just needs to hold it together for 11 more minutes and he'll end up taking home this victory. But I mean, one of the biggest mistakes a person could ever make is counting out Joshua Soto. We know what that driver can do behind the wheel of his race car. So even with a 3.5 second gap, I wouldn't count him out.
Yeah, if I'm in Ronnie Coates' car, I'm turning off the mirror. I'm just reaching up, maybe even snapping it off. I don't want to see anything that those guys are doing. I'm just hitting my marks and making the best laps that I possibly can.
Entering just 10 minutes remaining in this race very shortly, which means the guys behind Ronnie Coates are running out of time to try and catch him in the field. For the most part now has started to spread out. Sean Hayes still completely checked out for the open class. Tom Athon has gotten quite a big gap between himself and Bruce Silva for second in the open class. Most of the battles throughout the midfield are just between pro drivers fighting for position. You got the battle between Soto, Adams, and Peak there for second. You got the battle between Polici, Michael Coates, Brian Zabelski, and Sean Hayes there for seventh. You got the battle between Sean Ruiz and David Stopp for 11th. Ray Lombardi and Paulo Coimbra are also neck and neck, as well as Camden Hibbett and Andrew Kosick. So there still are battles going on throughout the field. They are just few and far between as the pit stops, especially with all the new corners on this track. There's a lot of corners on this track that we haven't seen before in the Spec-5 World Tour. So a lot of these guys caught off guard by this circuit, ended up just flubbing their pit strategies, and it led to things like this. It's not something you see every day. One car in a Spec-5 World Tour race just completely checking out.
But that car being Ronnie Coates is no surprise. He has shown pace all season long, and he's a very smart racer as well.
Yeah, most certainly never want to count him out, but still, those guys, they're still only managing 2:11.2s. That's not going to cut it if they try and get, or if they're trying to catch up to Joshua Soto, Ronnie Coates there currently leading this race. They've gotten the gap under 3.5 seconds through Maggots and Beckett's, but currently as they head through the Chapel curve there and down onto the hangar straight for the 17th time tonight, they still end up losing that gap just even more to Joshua Soto, Ronnie Coates.
You're just so used to seeing Josh Soto out front that it's kind of a shock that he's not there. You see Otis Adams is really using the track limits as much as he can. He's got to be very careful how he does that. The stewards can be very strict around here with some of the track limits. But he's definitely using every inch of the track to try to keep up with Soto.
Yeah,
Sean Hayes up to 6th place has made his way around Eugenio Polici. What a good race for Sean.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he doesn't win the Open Class Championship. Just has so much speed and consistency in that 94 car. A great driver, definitely deserves to win the championship if that so happens. But he has a battle on his hands in Silverstone. Eugenio Polici trying to make a move around to Michael Coates, trying to help out that number 7 car as they head towards Abbey once again and towards the farm straight. Looks like Eugenio Polici trying to get some better exit speed there. He did that time. Starts to close the gap up just a tad as they head through the final few corners, head through Bridge, Priory, Brooklands, and Lowfield here. Ooh, very sideways from Sean Hayes. You can see the tire smoke out of the rears. Now Eugenio Polici gave him a bit of a bump. Around goes Sean Hayes. That is going to shake this race up.
And that's going to win him the commentator's curse prize, that's for sure.
My apologies.
As my timing screen is going a little bit crazy. There we go. Sean Hayes now trying to recover, trying to hustle back to get caught up to this pack that he was just leading. Hopefully he can recover some spots.
Yeah, we're going to have to hope so. That's going to hurt him a little bit in the championship. Tom Athan closer to him now. And here's Greg Brockway last in the open class right now. Hasn't been the best race for him. It's been pretty quiet for him in this race, but he's still doing a pretty consistent job there in the number 62 open class Miata. Still doing a nice job just rolling through the hills, just trying to make it to the end of this race as we now only have 6 minutes remaining.
He's had a very quiet race, and he's running on his own, like you said. Now he's just trying to bring home the groceries and have a good, clean finish and getting him some camera time. Yeah,
he's doing a nice, consistent job back there. Not really one of the loudest drivers in the field, but you don't need to be loud to be good. And that's probably Ronnie Coates' strategy right now. Just quietly pull away from the cars behind you and just try and maintain speed, maintain pace, and just end up with the win. He got pretty loose there in Abbey. Might have been able to see a tire track out of the right rear tire as he's just throwing this car into these corners, just trying to get every ounce of speed he can.
We've seen that the gap has stabilized right around 3.5 to 3.7. So he's not pushing as super hard as he was before. Definitely maybe saving a touch of fuel we're unsure if he's got enough to make it to the end. He did have a very short pit stop, but he's got a lot of room, so he needs to go fast, but not make any mistakes.
Excuse me, I accidentally tripped and fell out of the broadcast booth. However, I picked myself up cleanly and I am now back. Do apologize for that. However, Ronnie Coates, I mean, he's losing a bit of time there. You can see the time he lost that lap. Lost around 4/10 to Joshua Soto, so Soto is still closing that gap. But Randall, do you think it's going to be enough time for him to get back up there?
They're pretty much out of time. At this point, they have 3 laps to close 3.4 seconds. The draft is about 1.5 seconds, so they got to close half that gap in 2 laps. Yeah, I don't know. They're running really short on time. Looking at a replay of Tom Athan. Possibly not. Looks like maybe a red herring there in the production booth. These guys are still keeping it pretty calm and collective, so I expect these guys will probably start fighting with each other really soon.
Adam might have tripped out of the booth like I did there. He might have tripped out of his virtual production truck here in Silverstone. Ooh, bit of an outbreak for himself there on Mitchell Peak. You can see the smoke coming out of the tires. Looked like he still maintained speed there through that corner, but ultimately didn't gain himself much, lost more time than anything. Here's Rui Coimbra, who has clawed his way back up to the top 5. He's pulled away from Michael Coates and Brian Zabelski, as well as Eugenio Polici back there. So these guys have all started to spread out throughout the midfield as well, but there still is a pretty major battle going on back here for P7. These guys still side by side through club. Very aggressive move from Sean Ruiz there, trying to get around Eugenio Polici.
Dave Staub's been hanging on the back of this pack for the entire race. I expect him to start making some moves soon, start seeing if he can pass some of these cars. These guys have been fighty all race, so it's no surprise that they're fighting now.
And real quick, while we have a bit of a break in the action between these guys, we're going to take a moment to shout out one of our sponsors here, which is TPC Motorsports, and they are a 4-year-old racing team based in Birmingham, Alabama, that currently races a Caterham 7 420R in the HSR series and a BMW Spec E46. So a big shout out to them for sticking their neck out and helping support the Spec-5 World Tour, giving us a chance to do what we love to do every week up here in the booth, giving us a pretty exciting late race battle here at Silverstone in the final few minutes. Only about 2.5 minutes to go, and there's still some major battles all over the place.
Yeah, and Eugenio Polici just got turned around. I didn't get a very good view of it. Maybe we can pull up the replay of that incident. Eugenio Polici, with some bad luck, gets turned by the nose of Sean Ruiz. We're going to see it now. They're fighting. Polici has the lead. Here comes Sean Ruiz sticking his nose in as they come into the bridge, and they make contact. Eugenio Polici comes out the worse for it. He's going to lose a handful of spots, try to get that car back pointed in the right direction and back onto the track. Really unfortunate for Polici, and probably going to keep the stewards busy tonight.
You can really see how close he was to cutting back across the track and into Tom Rath, and Sean Ruiz there slid right in front of both of those drivers. I can't tell, might have been just a racing incident there. Looked like they just kind of met in the middle between themselves. However, it looks like we are going to be coming up on the white flag here. So we have 2 to go, heading to the white flag as Ronnie Coates down this straightaway on through the DRS zone. More like draft for these cars. That's what they use the most. Under the Bridgestone Bridge and onto the brakes for Abby quite soon. Brings it down into second gear for this high-speed chicane and down towards bridge. It's been a nice, consistent race for him, and he's looking to bring it home.
The gap is opened back up to 3.9 seconds. I expect Soto and Adams and Peak are really going to start fighting as they come across to take the white flag. We see Soto still in second. I expect fireworks from these guys anytime soon.
Most certainly, as Adams is probably going to be going for positions, as is Mitchell Peak, but Joshua Soto needs those spots the most as he's trying to gain points on Rui Coimbra, who is now only 2 cars behind him in P5. Currently heading through Luffield is Rui Coimbra as these guys come to take the white flag. The final lap of this race, Ronnie Coates easily cruising away from this pack. It's all up to the battles throughout the midfield now, as Otis Adams is going to have to try and do all he can to get around Joshua Soto on this white flag.
Not only is he trying to get around Josh, he's trying to keep Mitchell behind him, which might be a more dangerous prospect, or more challenging prospect, I should say. Not dangerous. Mitchell Peak is a very clean driver. Definitely somebody I would trust going wheel to wheel with. It's going to be interesting coming down the Hangar straightaway to see who gets the good run out of Chapel.
Yeah, as they head out of Chapel, Otis Adams needs that draft run to try and make up some time. It looks like Ronnie Coates still just completely checking out up there. The race is on between these guys, though, as they head towards Stowe for the final time here tonight. Onto the brakes. It looks like Mitchell Peak trying to get around Otis Adams Jr. now. He'll get to the inside through Stowe and towards Club.
He definitely stuck his nose in there. Can he make it stick? It looks like he makes it stick, but the outside line gets a little bit better of a run on exit and sets you up for the chicane and Club, but it looks like Adams was clear of him well before then.
Here's a battle between Sean Hayes and Lee Martin for the top 10 spot. Martin is going to end up going to the inside here through Stowe, side by side for the final lap of this race. Both of them really loose. Lee Martin ends up with that position for now. We'll have to see what the guys up front are doing, as it looks like they're still running with each other. Here's Paulo Coimbra, Tom Athan, Ray Lombardi, and Bruce Silva, but up towards the front as he rounds Prairie and Brooklands. Ronnie Coates has dominated pretty much this entire race, but side by side into Prairie comes Mitchell Peak and Otis Adams Jr. Otis Adams goes for the switchback as they head into Brooklands and into Luffield for the final time, rounding the last corner and through Woodcut. It looks like Ronnie Coates is going to easily end up with the win. The real battle between these two cars, though, for P3. Ronnie Coates wins the race from Legacy Silverstone. Soto second. It looks like Otis Adams is going to have to settle for fourth. Mitchell Peak ends up third. We still have some battles back throughout the field.
Most of these cars right now in the second pack have shaken themselves out and cleared it up. Looks like Sean Hayes threatening to possibly get the pass back done on Lee Martin at the end. Not going to have enough coming out of Luffield to run through Woodcote. He's just going to run out of time before they get to the line.
I think Ray Lombardi and Paulo Coimbra might be side by side right now, according to my timing tower. Yes, they are through Brooklands. Paulo Coimbra gets forced wide and he's around. Ray Lombardi shoves him wide. He's going to lose the spot to Pellicci and maybe even Bruce Silva behind him. As Silva rounds Brooklands, Paulo Coimbra is going to come through Luffield to complete his race. Contact with Ray Lombardi late, ends up having to settle for 17th there, and just unfortunate for him. Very close battle between those two at the end.
Yeah, Coimbra really needed those points, so it's very unlucky for him, and the stewards will definitely be busy after this race. It's been a chaotic last lap.
Most certainly indeed, as everybody coming around the final few corners to complete their races. The last driver to do so will be Zach Gadberry. Here's Eugenio Pellicci going into Club on the white flag. Throws it into the corner. Then for the switchback through the chicane. Ooh, a little bit loose. He's going to end up going around there. And the number 7 car, pretty good job. Oh no, he's all the way around there. Almost saved it, ends up going around once again. Just an unlucky race for the number 17 here. Zach Gadberry going to be the last car to finish his race as he breaks into Abbey for the last time for himself. And just what a race from these guys once again.
Yeah, Mitchell Peak got it done on the last lap. Gets his feet on the bottom step of that podium. He's going to be relishing that after last week's finish.
Yeah, most certainly. And he's just coming around, just trying to finish this race. And what do you say we get to some interviews as these guys try and finish their races? And it looks like we're going to have to stall for a little bit. Nobody in the booth so far. So, just once again, this series, it never disappoints. Just a great race from them once again. And I'm honestly just impressed with the way that race went. I did not expect a big gap to form between Ronnie Coates and Soto and all those guys through the pit stops. Randall, why don't you take us through our race results?
Ronnie Coates, your winner by 3.6 seconds over Josh Soto. Mitchell Peak getting it done on the last lap, comes home third. Otis Adams Jr., your pole sitter, finishes in fourth place. Rui Coimbra in fifth with a good haul of points is keeping Soto honest and going to retain the points lead, I believe. Michael Coates in 6th survives some of the chaos that was in that second pack to bring it home 6th place. Brian Zabelski in 7th, Sean Ruiz in 8th, David Staub in 9th, Lee Martin in 10th. Sean Hayes had an incident out there. He was running as high as 6th at one point during this race. Brings it home 11th, still a pretty good recovery considering what happened. Tom Rathje in 12th, Kenneth Staub in 13th, Tom Athan 14th, Ray Lombardi 15th, Eugenio Polici, who had some troubles out there, ends up in 16th overall. Paulo Coimbra 17th, Bruce Silva in 18th, Josh Olson in 19th, Camden Hidd in 20th, Andrew Kosick in 21st, Stephen Hellowell 22nd, John Casey 23rd, Zach Gadberry 24th, Greg Brockway with a very quiet race finishes 25th, and Gareth Brocklesby brings it home, the last car that actually took to the grid, 26th.
Yeah, behind them looks like Zach Burke and Jedediah Babinek never managed to start their race. But we're going to get some interviews underway. The first person we'll manage to find here, the winner of the race, pulled out a massive gap from the pit cycles. It's Ronnie Coates. Ronnie, that was a pretty impressive pit strategy. Ended up getting you around 3 seconds ahead of everybody else. How'd you pull that one off?
I have no idea. I really don't. I think I hit it really well, and I think their outlap before that, on cold tires, kind of helped me a little bit too.
Yeah, definitely. As we know we know how much the tire model has affected these cars with the new update, and especially on this really old track surface. How is it out there in these Miatas?
It's a lot different. It's definitely it's way more loose in, and then they'll still kind of push off. And I think the character of the car is quite a bit different than it was.
All right. Well, before we let you go, congrats on the win. And anybody you want to thank up here in the booth?
Yeah, shout out to Not a Team. We've been practicing together, and it definitely helps. So yeah, good job to those guys.
All right, well, if you don't have any questions for him, I'll send you back. Congrats on the win. Hopefully we'll see you up here again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
And that was Ronnie Coates, your winner of the day here overall. And it looks like we haven't managed to find where Sean Hayes is at just yet. So we'll take you through your upcoming broadcasts real fast. And so currently, for upcoming races, this Sunday, a new series in its entirety, starting at 9 a.m. EST. I think that's the first time I've ever had to say that. 9 a.m. It's going to be a 4-hour race for the new WSRL Endurance Series, which is going to be the LMP2s, GT3s, and GT4s at Road America. That's going to be an interesting race. Going to have probably multiple teams of commentators. You're going to want to try and stick around for that. Then, almost 12 hours later, XSLR returns at 8:10 p.m. EST with the Legacy 2008 NASCAR Chevrolet Silverados at USA International Speedway. The first real short track for those guys is going to be interesting. Then next Monday at 9 p.m. EST, XTC returns with the GT3 and GT4 cars at Watkins Glen. Going to be an interesting race, especially after Zandvoort. And then next Tuesday, WSRL and AMS return at 8:50 and 9:05 p.m. EST respectively. WSRL with the GT3 and GT4s at Road Atlanta. And then AMS with, LMP2s and GT3s at Road Atlanta, And then the Mustang FR500Ss for the SBO Network's American Muscle Series at Mid-Ohio. Then a week from now at 9:15 p.m. EST, the Spec-5 World Tour returns once again with the Mazda Miatas at Watkins Glen. Not going to want to miss that. And now, Randall, have you managed to find Sean Hayes for us?
It looks like we have Sean Hayes waiting outside. If we can open up the booth door to let him in, maybe ask him some questions about his race. Sean Hayes, your open class winner. Tell us a little bit about your race. We saw you had a little bit of bad luck out there, but you still brought it home in 11th.
Yeah, that was. I was just unlucky. I think I made a mistake, and I think Eugenio got under me. So that's just how it goes. But mainly I was really trying to stay on the track and keep it as smooth as I could. There were going to be drivers that were going to get past me at some point. So it was really just stay smooth. So if people are going to get past. I was probably going to just let them fly until an open class came up, and then I'd have to defend a bit more. But I guess I was at least enough this time round to just keep it at the pointy end for a little bit longer than normal.
So let me ask, how do you feel about the color red? Because I don't think we're going to be seeing you with a blue number for very much longer with the commanding points lead that you have.
Well, I count myself lucky. I've been mainly incident free. I've just been able to smoother than I used to be. Got my pit stops a little bit better. So I think it just goes to show me that all these little bits add up over time. And blue, red. I enjoy racing in this league. So that's going to be the most important thing. And it's certainly it's just got better and better over time.
You're absolutely right. The little things do add up. You had a good recovery from your incident, still with the open class win. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out before we let you go?
Well, as always, my wife and daughter who let me just on down in the basement and listen to my stories afterwards. That's always good. And a shout out to everybody who races. It's like I said, it's been good all the time, and it just gets better and better. And to you guys for putting it on and giving us some. Giving us our 15 minutes of fame, or however long it happens to be, that's pretty cool.
Well, great race. Hopefully, we see you back up here in the broadcast booth after another race, and maybe even next season wearing a red tag with an overall win.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I'll be aiming for it regardless.
We'll see you next week.
Okay. Yeah. Take care. Thanks.
That was your open class winner, Sean Hayes. And Alex, what a race!
I thought it was a really good race, honestly. I mean, he had the pit strategy there. I didn't expect Ronnie Coates to pull that gap to the pit lane, and apparently he didn't either. So, great race from everybody. Once again, Randall, what was your take on it?
Well, even if you watch faster cars like F1 around courses like Silverstone, even though they're on a newer layout, you always end up with wacky races. You always end up with lots of action. Pit strategy always come into effect. So no surprise that Silverstone produced a really great race with these cars.
Yeah, most certainly. And if nothing else is to be said, it looks like that's going to be it for us. My name is Alex Andersen. I was late to this. I have been joined in the commentary booth by Randall McGrew and our, almost commentator for this race. He came out of retirement for a second, Adam Thompson, who now defected to our virtual production truck. And from Slow Motion Broadcasting for the Spec-5 World Tour, round 7 out of 10 in season 10 of the series from 2008 Silverstone, have a good night.